when the engineer gets in over her head, you have experts standing by in a command service center, perhaps thousands of miles away, who can walk that engineer through any repair via secure video. This is the industrial internet at work, and I find it awe-inspiring. But it is not a panacea. Even if you have all the data in the world at your fingertips, you will fall short of your potential unless you pay close attention to two critical success factors. The first one is to adjust your business processes to leverage the new information. And the second one is to empower yourself with a working knowledge of data science. Let me explain first why you need to adjust your processes. About 20 years ago, the trucking industry went through a remarkable transformation, which is the emergence of onboard computers. And you can think of these as a really early incarnation of the industrial internet. The onboard computers produced new sets of data. In particular, it was truck speed and engine performance and location. And with this data, trucking firms could finally make sure that drivers didn't do any side trips, and also that they didn't waste fuel. And being able to monitor drivers increased the performance for these firms by 2.3%. But this was only the tip of the iceberg. Even once all of the new data had been put to use, the real productivity improvements came from taking advantage of this data, but in new ways. You see, back in the day, a typical trucking firm would have a room full of dispatchers, and then they would also have another room full of salespeople. And before onboard computers, these trucking firms couldn't estimate very precisely the delivery times. And when you are expecting a delivery as a client, you're trying to schedule a crew to unload the truck will be here from 8 to 12. It's just not that helpful information. It's costly for the recipient, but it's also really costly for the salespeople in the trucking firm, because they can't offer the next customer a precise pickup time either. And when trucking firms adjusted their processes so that the dispatchers would start talking to the salespeople, that's when the productivity improvements really soared. Because the dispatchers had the critical information. You see, not only did they know the truck arrival time precisely now, about, say, between 8 and 8:15, but they also knew how long it would take a particular recipient to actually unload the truck. And by putting these two pieces of information together, the dispatchers gave the sales guys much more time to fill the load on the truck. You see, previously it didn't pay to share this information because there was just too much slack in the system. But what happened is that when the trucking firms adjusted processes and leveraged the data, they get a whopping 10.4% increase in productivity. Can you imagine what that would be like in your industry? So, my conclusion from this trucking example is simply this. If you were to leverage the benefits of predictive analytics, and you can think of these onboard computers as being very early incarnations of predictive analytics, or rather that they enable predictive analytics, it's not enough to just have bigger and better data. You also have to adjust your processes and create incentives for your managers to find new ways to use this data. You know, productivity improvements like this are coming in much more advanced form to a lot of different industries, as sort of Jeff talked about this morning. From rail to aviation to oil and gas and even to healthcare. A typical hospital, for example, has between 5,000 and 10,000 pieces of equipment that can be tagged